I want to bring in CBSN political contributor Sabrina Siddiqui now. She is a political reporter for The Guardian. Sabrina, there wasn't a lot of talk about this in advance. Do we know what prompted this particular pardon?
Well, we're still learning more of the details, but you've seen this trend from President Trump where he has unexpectedly announced several pardons, as you just read through the list. And what's been highly unusual about this president is how early he's using his pardon power with respect to his time in office, and whether or not he's actually using the proper channels. It certainly doesn't seem that he has been in consultation with the Justice Department, with his legal counsel, to go through the much lengthier process that is typically required of a presidential pardon. I think a lot of people do believe that the president's actions are more politically motivated, and perhaps, given he has many of his associates who are under investigation, both with respect to the special counsel as well as Michael Cohen, his longtime attorney, that perhaps he is trying to send a signal to his allies to hang in there, because if they refuse to cooperate with investigators, then they could very well be rewarded with a pardon themselves.
Right, and I want to get to that potential message in just a second, but I want to stick with D'Souza for a moment, because the president says D'Souza was treated unfairly by the government, but he did plead guilty to violating campaign finance laws. So what are we to take away from that?
Well, he not only pleaded guilty to violating campaign finance law, but he was sentenced to 5 years probation and ordered 8 hours a day of community service and to pay a fine. So I don't think that many people would feel that was a highly unfair sentence to hand down to someone who acknowledged wrongdoing. I think that in general, the president's pardons have been somewhat peculiar because they haven't necessarily been to the most sympathetic of characters. You look at, for example, the way that President Obama used his pardon power. He actually was very cautious with using pardons, but toward the end of his presidency, he commuted a lot of sentences for individuals who were convicted of low-level drug offenses, predominantly people of color, as part of his push for criminal justice reform. Other presidents in the past have also looked for people who they felt were genuinely treated unfairly by the court of law or by the current justice system, not necessarily some of these conservative firebrands like Dinesh D'Souza, like Joe Arpaio, or like Scooter Libby.
So, Sabrina, as you mentioned earlier, this, of course, comes as several Trump allies are under investigation and several former aides pleaded guilty in relation to the Russia probe. So what kind of a message, if any, is this meant to send?
Well, I think that there's been a great deal of concern within the president's legal team about the potential for some key witnesses or key individuals who have been entangled in these investigations at the federal level, both with respect to Russia as well as the whole Michael Cohen inquiry, to flip and to cooperate with prosecutors. So, the potential here is to say, especially if you're Michael Cohen, who is arguably facing the most substantial legal trouble, just hang in there, and perhaps the president will reward loyalty. We know that this is a president who time and again has emphasized loyalty, not just to those around him in terms of his close friends and allies, but frankly, even demanding loyalty of the people who serve in his administration, occasionally to great controversy. And it's hard for many people to not question the timing of these pardons. As I said earlier, it's very rare for a president to be taking these actions when he's only a year and a half into office. There's typically a judicial process and a review that is followed. So it does seem that the president is acting on his impulses for potentially ulterior motives. We can't say for certain, but I think a lot of people are questioning the timing here.
Sure, the timing is certainly interesting. And the president clearly has the Russia probe on his mind. This morning he tweeted he did not fire Comey over Russia. But last year in an interview, he did say he thought about it when he fired him.
And in fact, when I decided to just do it, I said to myself, I said, this Russia thing with Trump and Russia is a made-up story.
So when the president publicly contradicts himself or gives other false statements on this investigation, is that a strategy that ultimately helps him or harms him?
Well, I think there's two ways to look at the strategy. There's the political strategy, and then there's the legal strategy. I think when you're talking about the latter, any time that he publicly discusses the investigation, he is hurting himself from a legal standpoint, because he's not only contradicting himself, but he's calling into question the motives behind some of the decisions that he's made. Certainly, Robert Mueller, the special counsel, is very interested in the firing of James Comey and what led up to that event. From a political perspective, we know that the president is trying to undermine the credibility of the special counsel with his attacks on the FBI and the Justice Department. And so I think many of his tweets and many of the statements that he's made, even if false, even if unsubstantiated, are intended to sway the court of public opinion where he thinks this will ultimately be decided.
So, Sabrina, last but not least, the European Union, Mexico, and Canada are all saying they will retaliate if the U.S. imposes tariffs on steel and aluminum, as announced this morning and going into effect at midnight. What does this latest move by the Trump administration say to our allies?
Well, I think it's very striking because initially when the president made this unexpected tariff announcement just a couple months ago, there was a great deal of backlash from these allies, Canada, Mexico, other partners in Europe, as well as, frankly, from Republicans in Congress who were concerned about what the economic ramifications of these tariffs would be. You have had, as you note, several governments already saying that they are going to levy retaliatory tariffs on the U.S. if the administration proceeds. And it had seemed as though the administration was willing to make exceptions to exempt some of these countries from those tariffs. They are now reversing course. And so I do think it calls into question the rationale behind the president's trade policy. He was open about wanting to pursue a more America first, as he called it, nationalistic agenda. But that's frankly, as we know, something that a lot of economists would say could have great ramifications for the U.S. economy and certainly further erode some of the relationships with our key partners. And that includes China and Mexico, who are also, it's worth noting, engaged in conversations at this moment about renegotiating NAFTA with the U.S. So this could also, in addition to inviting retaliatory tariffs, threaten some of those very delicate negotiations.
Absolutely. Sabrina Siddiqui, thank you for your insight.
Thank you.